right, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I had to wait for a second, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk. And we're not going to be here for long. I don't know what is going on with, I do. YouTube took them down and not really posting like they were before. This is called Supreme African Breaking News, SABN or SABN, with Tisu Banhu Bacho. So that's the one that I've been using to get all of the current and latest information about the one African government and what is going on, who did what, and what the next stage, what event took place. It's been a hellified couple of weeks. So, I don't know exactly what's going on with SABN. Obviously, YouTube took them down, but it's been one thing after another, and that's one of the main things I really depended on to really look forward to hear the latest news about what's going on. So I would have to, it's not an apology, but please excuse the interruption, but I'm hoping that they come back on and really give us all of the latest details and the latest news coming out of Africa and what that means. So, it's not the end of the world. I hate it, but the idea is that you have to keep moving, keep going forward. So, hopefully, SABN will be back and we'll be back on point as far as the African Union and the United States of Africa and all of that stuff. So, but if you have not seen those videos, please go back and look at them and subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell to get all the latest news about what's going on. And it's going to be one. I'm going to have to go back to doing what I used to do, which was all of the latest, not the latest, it would be the history of our people and what that means. So tonight we got 1, 2, 3, 4, we got 5 YouTube channels that I'm going to be focusing on. That's like an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes outside of me talking like I'm doing right now, right? So, one of the things we're going to be focusing in on tonight is, hold on, let me put up the screen, share screen that is. So one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is how the fabrication, the realization into reality of the British Empire. Now, the British Empire was all black from the beginning all the way up to about 1840 or so. And then the pale skin came in and did what they did, right? But the reality is that the British Empire, as we know her to be today, was kicked off by black people. Now, a lot of people don't know or don't realize that India is the daughter, and some people have a different opinion about that. But for me, India is the daughter of Africa, and some people say Africa is the daughter of India. That can be debated. But right now, we're going to take the role and the position that India is still and was the daughter of Africa. And so with the very wealthy family known as Seth, something along that line, well, you hear it here, that it was the starting point of Britain being the global power that it is, with black money. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't or have not read or heard about that story. So we're going to get into it, and you can look back at this. Hold on, let me see. You can look back at this little description here. Let me go on and subscribe to that. And you get more information. All right. So we'll be right back.
So wealthy that its golden coins could fund Europe for centuries, and a banking family so powerful it could make or break that empire overnight. In the 1700s, there wasn't just a land of kings. It was home to a secret financial network that even emperors feared. One family, the Jagat Seths, held more money than the British East India Company, and their ledgers decided who ruled Bengal, who went bankrupt, and who would ultimately control India itself. But how did a small group of Indian bankers become the invisible hand behind both the Mughal collapse and the British conquest? This is the forgotten story of the men who financed empires and accidentally handed India to Britain. Welcome to Financial History Uncovered. Thank you for listening. Smash that like button. Let's begin. The early 18th century, under the late Mughals, Bengal wasn't chaos. It was cash. Its fertile fields produced more revenue than all of Britain combined. But unlike Europe, where kings relied on taxes and wars, India had merchant bankers, private financiers who moved money faster than any government. At the center of it all stood one name, Jagat Seth, meaning banker of the world. This wasn't one man, but a dynasty, a powerful Marwari family that built a financial empire from Bengal's trade riches. They managed currency exchange, lent to princes, and even printed their own bills of credit. Think of them as a mix between JP Morgan, the IMF, and a central bank, centuries before those existed. They funded armies, backed rulers, and stabilized trade routes stretching from Delhi to Dhaka. When a Mughal prince needed to pay troops or bribe nobles, he didn't turn to the emperor. He turned to Jagat Seth's vaults. But here's the problem with private power. When money speaks louder than emperors, politics starts to follow finance. By 1730, the Mughals had grown weak. Bengal's Nawabs ruled independently, and the Jagat Seths had become the true power behind the throne. They had financed the empire's wars, and were about to finance its collapse. So the question is, how did a family of accountants end up playing kingmaker to an empire? The answer lies in one battle, and one betrayal, that changed India forever. In 1757, a quiet conspiracy was brewing in Murshidabad, Bengal's capital. The East India Company, led by Robert Clive, wanted more than trade. It wanted power. But the company didn't have the money or the local influence to overthrow Bengal's ruler, Siraj-ud-Dowlah. The Jagat Seths did. Tired of Siraj's reckless spending and political chaos, the Seths saw a more profitable future, one under British order. So, they made a deal with Clive. They would secretly fund the company's army in exchange for control over Bengal's treasury after victory. The result? The Battle of Plassey, a fight that lasted just a few hours, but reshaped world history. The British won, not through strength, but through finance and betrayal. The Nawab's forces, bribed with Seth money, refused to fight. Siraj-ud-Dowlah was captured and executed. And for their help, the Jagat Seths received power over Bengal's revenues. Or so they thought. Because the British had just learned something dangerous. Money wins faster than war. Within years, the East India Company would turn on its former partners, using Bengal's wealth to fund expansion and pushing the Jagat Seths into decline. The very bankers who funded the Mughal collapse had just financed their own replacement. So, how much wealth did the British actually take? And what happened to the Indian banking networks that once ruled Asia? Once Bengal fell, the British East India Company gained the Diwani, or right to collect taxes. Overnight, the company went from traders to tax collectors. But here's the twist. They didn't know how India's credit system worked. They needed local financiers, so they absorbed them. The Jagat Seths, once independent bankers, were now forced to lend under British control. In economic terms, this was the first hostile takeover in Indian history. Before 1757, Bengal's tax money circulated inside India, funding local industries, artisans, and temples. After 1757, it flowed straight to London. This was the start of what economist Dadabhai Naoroji later called the drain of wealth. Between 1757 and 1857, Britain extracted the equivalent of $45 trillion in today's money from India, and the private bankers who once ran the empire's credit system vanished, replaced by the East India Company's monopoly. The Jagat Seth family itself faced political persecution and bankruptcy. By the 1770s, their fortune, once greater than the Bank of England, was gone. The British had mastered the same system that once made India rich, but turned it outward to fund their own industrial revolution. So, could India's financial empire have survived if it had stayed independent? The numbers suggest yes, but the next century ensured otherwise. Here's something history books rarely say. Britain didn't fund its empire. India did. The taxes collected in Bengal after 1757 became the seed capital for Britain's wars in Europe, its navy expansion, and its global trade dominance. Records show that even the Napoleonic Wars were partly financed with Indian revenues. Factories in Manchester ran on Indian cotton. British exports to India skyrocketed, while Indian industries collapsed. The cycle was self-reinforcing. Indian taxes paid for British troops, which protected trade routes, which ensured more Indian taxes. The Jagat Seth's legacy lived on, but not in name. Structure. Their decentralized credit network became the blueprint for colonial finance. The same system that built Bengal's prosperity now powered London's empire. It's ironic, Britain's financial revolution, banking, credit, and accounting, was perfected in India long before it arrived in Europe. So, what happened when that system finally ran dry? When the drain ended and India's wealth stopped flowing to London? That's when the empire itself began to crack. By the mid-19th century, the East India Company was gone. Britain ruled India directly, but the old financial foundations were eroding. Without India's vast trade surpluses, the British economy stagnated. The costs of empire, wars, railways, administration, outpaced the returns. The cycle that began with the Jagat Seths funding one rebellion had come full circle. Money once again dictated the fate of an empire. In 1947, as Britain left India, its debt had soared to over 200% of GDP, the same trap that ended the Mughals 2 centuries earlier. Empires fall when they forget who controls the money. For the Mughals, it was the Jagat Seths. For the British, it was the bond markets and the US dollar. So, what's the lesson? History doesn't just repeat, it repeats.
Hold on.
The story of the Jagat Seths isn't just about one dynasty. It's a mirror for every empire that believes military power can outlast financial reality. And if history tells us anything, it can't.
Wow. So, don't forget about the Rothschilds and their takeover of the bank during their time. So, that's critical if you want to try to understand how we got to this present moment, right? So, let's take a look at Rothschild and their takeover of the banking entity of England. So, hold on. Yeah. So it said the Rothschild family is a wealthy Ashkenazi Jewish noble banking family originated from Frankfurt. The family's documented history starts in the 16th century to 1500 Frankfurt. Its name is derived from the family house. Rothschild means big shield. Rothschild, built by Isaac Elkanan Baccarat in Frankfurt in 1567. The family rose to prominence when Meyer Amschel Rothschild, a court factor to the German Landgraves and Hesse Castle in the Free City of Frankfurt. And it goes on. Unlike many previous court factors, Rothschild managed to bequeath his wealth and establish an international banking family through his 5 sons. Now, what happened was that they got in during the war with Napoleon. They had inside information. That information, inside information, caused a ruckus on the exchange at that time, whereby that exchange started to sell off whatever bonds that they had, because according to the news, the fake news, Napoleon was winning, right? So they got in and they started buying e-bonds that were going down to virtually nothing. Well, when the word got out that actual battle was against Napoleon. Those bonds shot up to virtually endless amount of money and causing the Rothschild family to take over the Bank of England. That's the story. So when you're looking at this, and this took place, hold on, for the Rothschild, let me see. In the 1600s, now you know they started in the 1600s, that's in the 1500s. So now you go back up to the present moment where they're talking about giving the Palestinian land to the Jews and all of this. You know, that was for the hand of the Rothschild interrupting all of that, and they were the cause of the war in America, and they were the force behind that war. Because you can play both sides of the war, you're going to win. One side or the other is going to win, right? And then you have the takeover of the financial system of America in 1870. So they've been a long litany of involvement with the Rothschilds and finance. And, you know, money talk, bullshit walk. And that is exactly what is going on. So all that time between the 1500s up until this present moment, and along with what we just heard, you can see the play-by-play here as to what is going on, or what had gone on, or what is still going on. And it's going to be a change of the guard and a change of hands. And this is why I've been posting a lot of what was going on in in Africa, because there's a group of wealthy black Africans that are in the billions that are behind. Now remember that, behind the financial structure of the African Union and the United States of Africa, and they're the new Rothschilds. You know what I mean? They're the new. What were some of the other ones? The Bilderberg. Not is that the Bilderberg? Well, anyway, the wealthy elite class of America, where you're talking about. Damn, I can't even think of the name of these people. Yeah, it's drawing a blank. But anyway, wealthy family, the Carnegies, like that. All right, hold on. Old money. Let's see what come up. Oh yeah, okay. Now you got the Vanderbilt, the Carnegie, the Rockefeller, all of these things. So that's what I was trying to think of. I don't know why this is not coming up. But anyway, okay, so you got the Rothschild and their history and what happened, how they took over the Bank of England because they were wealthy. All right? So, hold on. Hold on. I hate it when that happens, but anyway, so we're looking at this, and I'm comparing it to what has happened, and what I've heard, and what I've shown on the videos on my podcast. That the world is changing, you guys. We are going into 26, and when I tell you it's gonna be a motherfucker, economically speaking, that it's gonna create. If you thought the 30s was rough, after 29, you thought the 30s were rough, you ain't seen shit yet. Nothing. So people are talking about NESRA, GESRA, and what that means. It's a toss-up for me. But, you know, NESRA is National Economic Recovery Act. National Economic what does the S stand for? Something Recovery Act. That's supposed to be freeing us from the elite. And now you know the payment of income tax is not a legitimate tax. And the Federal Reserve is not a federal agency or entity. It's not. So when you're looking at that, along with GESRA, which is the geopolitical movement of other countries that would be similar to what America is supposed to be doing under Trump, and making Trump and every American living under the land law, where we were living under maritime law. All right. So with that being said, we're back on land law, and the fact that that all of the encumbrances, the handcuffs. Hold on, I hate it. So with all of that being done, your birth certificate is supposed to be worth $50 to $150 million. You're supposed to be getting that back because we're supposed to be under the Republic of America, not the Democratic bullshit Democratic government corporation, right? So with all of that being said, and if you look at your birth certificate, it's all in capital letters. You're like a straw man. So that's not supposed to happen, and we're supposed to be getting all of this straight. And every American, the food prices, whatever price, supposed to be going back to the 1950 prices, and things are just going to be a hell of a lot cheaper. So that's one of the things why I say that it's up in the air for me. But with the current Section 8, I'm not on Section 8, but with the current Section 8 crisis going on, and people losing their domicile where they live, and food stamps and stuff like that, it's being cut off. For how long, I don't know. But this might be the resetting of America, going back to the Republic of America. So, but we'll see what happens in 2026. We got 2 months left. Then we'll be on and popping. So we'll see what happens. So that's what I was looking at, and that's the reason why I played that, and how that affect us and affect us today. So with that being said, and all of the videos that I have played that indicated what was going on, I hate that I'm not able to see what's really going on with SABN, because I really love that channel, man. But anyway, yeah, hopefully it comes back. So we're going to keep on moving forward. But one of the things that I wanted to focus in on is the fact of white folks' lives. Now, I'm not a fan of white folks, because there's no such thing as a white person. We all come from the black woman, which means we're all black, or the black mother and father, who are the parents of all of humanity, which means we're all black. But if something happened to you pale skin, and you can find that out in the book, The Iceman's Inheritance, along with a lot of other books that are indicated in that, they fucked up. So the idea is that they've been, white people as we know them to be today, they've been deluded into believing delusions and fantasy. They're not white, they're not Anglo-Saxon, they're not European, they're not Caucasian, and they come from Dravidian albinos that made it with normal black people, and they got put in Central Asia, where they grew mightily, and they made a pact with the Turks. And at that point, before this pact, the Mongol, the Turk, the Persian, they were just killing these motherfuckers, killing them, taking the skin off their back and making door panels and shoes and shit. Real talk, right? So somewhere along the line, the Turkish slavery of these people weren't as hard. And so they were able to get an education, they were able to raise, they become the Grand Poobah, whatever you call them. And they were able to make a deal with the Persian and break down and break through the Persian Wall, and that's why it's called the Hadrian Wall, into our Holy Roman Empire, which was in Italy, that got pushed into France. So as you should know, the first two popes were black, and then that changed over time because during the French uh, the French Revolution, the 10 Year War, 30 Year War, all of these wars were with our kids. And as a matter of fact, I don't want to try to find it. A famous comedian made a skit about that. And hold on, let me see if I can make. It's a long shot, but hold on. Okay, but he made a skit about that, and that shit was funny than a motherfucker. He was talking about get your ass on that boat like a whip. Mom and Dad, we tired of this bullshit. That's some real shit, man. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it slight of it, try to make it less than what it is. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? And if you look at the history of these so-called pale skin, and they weren't white at that point, we were calling them growl, we were calling them well, growls. I can't think of the name of that. We weren't white, and we weren't calling them white. So you got to look at the history of Black Europe, and throughout all of Europe, there were nothing but black people being the kings and queens and the upper bureaucrats, right? And these so-called black bureaucrats, if that's the correct word that I'm looking for, or the upper echelon of the society, you'll find that they were making a pact with the pale skin to take over the throne of Britain. And this is one of the reasons why Jack Johnson was brought over to the United States, not as a slave, but during what they call it, during because a lot of people, it was a battle between the royal family at that point. You're talking about King James and others and stuff like that. But when Jack Johnson came, holy shit! It's amazing that I can't think of this bullshit. Jack Johnson. They were brought over here based on that move, on that war. So I doubt I'm gonna, because I would say it out like I would say it out my mouth, like my name. But that war was pivotal in bringing in a lot of black people from England. I hate that. I'm sorry about that. So bringing in a lot of black people from England, because they were having a war with the upper class black people who were part of the bureaucratic, not government, but royal family. And you have, man, I hate it when I draw a blank like this, because I should be running these things off like pop, 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 pop. But, hold on, let me see, the history. They might have it here. Hold on. That's crazy. Hold on. Yeah, if I think about it, then I'm going to, I'll mention it as we go. But I just can't think of it right now. Excuse me. Yeah, there were some very important events that just broke us down and broke our control down from total black control to what it is today. But anyways, I don't want to get too far along that line. I was just an adjunct or something like that I wanted to try to bring up. But for the life of me, I can't think about what that was. But it'll come to me I hope it before the show ends. But anyway, we're going to get into how Black Soldier crushed the KKK. You got to realize that the white boy, and I call him a boy because he's not a man. Men are men of integrity, are people of integrity, are people of honor, are people of trust, are people of character, are people of kindness, and using all of the virtue that epitomizes what a man is. A father, a brother, a husband, a cousin, and all of that good stuff. But you got to realize that white folks are not smart. They done ran the motherfucking country into a $38 trillion debt. They're a bunch of fuck-ups. And just as in the first video that I was trying to show you, once the money dried up from the black wealth out of India, they were lost. And this is what they are good at. They're good at conning people. They're good at making it look like they are important. They ain't shit. So we're going to get into this, and this is 17 minutes, and I'll be right back.
October 1871. 600 armed black men surround a plantation house in South Carolina. Inside, 11 Klan members are cowering in terror. The same men who've been lynching freedmen for sport. The captain leading this raid, a former slave named Jim Williams. What happens in the next 60 seconds will be erased from every history book for the next 150 years. Because when those doors kicked open, everything white America believed about power, race, and violence shattered. They couldn't let you know that black soldiers didn't just fight the KKK, they absolutely crushed them. The year is 1865, and the American Civil War has just ended. 4 million black Americans have been declared free, but freedom on paper means almost nothing when you're surrounded by people who've spent generations treating you as property. Across the former Confederacy, white supremacists are refusing to accept their defeat. They can't re-enslave black people legally, so they turn to terror instead. In Tennessee, a group of Confederate veterans forms a secret society dedicated to restoring white supremacy through violence. They call themselves the Ku Klux Klan, and within months, they've spread to every corner of the South like a disease. The Klan's strategy is brutally simple. They ride at night, their faces hidden under white hoods, and they target anyone who represents black freedom. A freedman who dares to vote, his house burns to the ground. A black political leader who speaks up for his community, he's dragged from his bed and lynched. A black family trying to buy their own land, they're whipped until they agree to keep working for their former masters. In South Carolina alone, historians estimate the Klan murders hundreds of black Americans in just 2 years. Local sheriffs look the other way. State courts refuse to prosecute. For black communities, there's nowhere to turn for protection. But here's the part they don't teach in school. Black Americans didn't just endure this nightmare passively. They organized, they strategized, and in several southern states, they did something that would become the white supremacists' worst fear. They formed their own militias. These weren't vigilante groups or angry mobs. They were official state militia companies, legally authorized and commanded by black officers. In South Carolina, where black voters had helped elect a Republican governor, the state militia became majority black by 1870. Black men like Jim Williams, Robert Smalls, and Prince Rivers weren't just given rifles. They were given military rank, authority, and the legal power to arrest terrorists. Think about what this meant. Men who had been enslaved just 5 years earlier were now captains and lieutenants commanding armed companies. They drilled in formation. They wore uniforms. They had the backing of the state government. And initially, the federal government too. For the first time since arriving in America in chains, black communities had organized military power, and white supremacists absolutely lost their minds. Southern newspapers went into hysterics. They published cartoons showing black soldiers as savage apes with guns. They ran headlines screaming about Negro rule and warned that black militias were planning to massacre white families in their sleep. Former Confederate officers claimed that arming black men would lead to race war and chaos. But the truth, as always, was far simpler and far less dramatic. Black militiamen weren't planning revenge fantasies or racial violence. They were doing exactly what militias are supposed to do, protecting their communities from terrorist attacks. When the Klan rode into a county with a strong black militia presence, they suddenly found themselves facing organized resistance instead of defenseless victims. The federal government, under President Ulysses S. Grant, had to make a choice. Grant, to his credit, understood what was happening. He'd fought to end slavery, and he wasn't about to let ex-Confederates terrorize their way back into power. In 1871, he did something unprecedented. He asked Congress to pass the Ku Klux Klan Act, giving him the power to suspend habeas corpus and deploy federal troops against domestic terrorists. When Congress agreed, Grant didn't hesitate. He declared martial law in 9 South Carolina counties and sent in the Army. But here's the crucial detail that history books bury. Those federal troops didn't work alone. They coordinated with black militia companies, treating them as legitimate military allies. For a brief, shining moment, the United States government backed armed black resistance against white supremacy. You have to understand how revolutionary this was. Black men who'd been whipped for learning to read were now working alongside federal officers to arrest their former masters. Black captains were interrogating Confederate veterans about their crimes. The entire racial hierarchy of the South was being turned upside down at gunpoint, and it was completely legal. White supremacists had built their power on the assumption that black people would always be defenseless, that violence would always flow in one direction. The existence of organized, armed, state-sanctioned black military units shattered that assumption entirely. October 1871, York County, South Carolina. The tension has reached a breaking point. A black militiaman has been lynched by the Klan as a warning to others. The message is clear: join the militia and die. Most white officials expect black communities to back down, to accept that resistance is too dangerous. But Captain Jim Williams has had enough. He's watched his neighbors terrorized for years. He's seen children orphaned and women widowed. He's listened to white authorities make excuses for why they can't stop the violence. And he's done waiting for permission to defend his people. Williams musters his company, all 600 men, and they begin a night march that will become legendary in black communities, even as it's erased from white historical memory. They move through the darkness with military precision. No torches, no noise, just the sound of boots on dirt roads. Their target, the plantation of a known Klan leader, a man who's openly boasted about his role in multiple lynchings. When they arrive, Williams positions his men in a complete perimeter around the house. There's no escape, no way out. Then they move in. The doors splinter under their assault. Klansmen who'd spent years terrorizing defenseless families suddenly find themselves staring down the barrels of rifles held by black soldiers who have every legal right to be there. Williams and his men arrest 11 Klansmen that night, dragging them out in their nightclothes, binding their hands, and marching them to federal custody. Not a single shot is fired. The entire operation is executed with the kind of discipline that would make any military commander proud. And that's exactly what terrifies white supremacists. This isn't a mob, it's an army. Word of Williams's raid spreads like wildfire through South Carolina's black communities.
Okay.
If it worked in York County, it can work everywhere. Within weeks, black militia captains across the state are conducting similar operations. In Union County, a black officer arrests an entire Klan den. 19 men captured in a coordinated midnight raid. In Spartanburg, Klansmen start fleeing to North Carolina before the militias can reach them. In counties where black militia companies actively patrol, Klan violence doesn't just decrease, it nearly vanishes. The statistics are stunning. A 90% drop in terrorist attacks wherever black soldiers operate. This isn't coincidence. This is what happens when oppressed communities finally get the tools to defend themselves. Federal prosecutors move quickly to capitalize on the momentum. By late 1871, they've arrested over 600 Klansmen in South Carolina alone. Trials begin in federal court, and for the first time, Klan members are facing real consequence. Black militiamen take the witness stand and testify against the terrorists who'd brutalized their communities. They name names, describe crimes, and provide evidence that leads to convictions. The Klan's aura of invincibility is shattered. Members who'd hidden behind hoods and darkness are being exposed in courtrooms and sentenced to prison. The entire power structure of white supremacist terror is being systematically dismantled, not by white saviors or Northern charity, but by black military organization and federal support. It's working. Against all odds, against centuries of oppression, against a terrorist organization that seemed unstoppable, black militias are winning. The original Ku Klux Klan, the one founded by Confederate veterans in 1865, is on the verge of complete collapse in South Carolina. This should be one of the great triumphs of American history, a story of oppressed people using legal means and military discipline to defeat their oppressors. This should be taught in every school, celebrated in every textbook. But that's not what happens, because Northern whites are watching all of this unfold, and they're starting to get uncomfortable. They're seeing newspaper illustrations of black soldiers with rifles arresting white men. They're reading accounts of black captains interrogating Confederate veterans. They're realizing that armed, organized black communities represent a fundamental shift in power, and many of them don't like it. Northern industrialists worry about labor unrest if black workers get ideas about armed resistance. Northern Democrats see an opportunity to reclaim Southern votes by abandoning Reconstruction. Even some Northern Republicans decide that maintaining white supremacy, just in a gentler form, is preferable to real black equality. So the support evaporates. Federal troops are withdrawn. Funding for militia operations dries up. White supremacist redeemer governments start winning elections through fraud and violence. And the moment they take power, they move against black militias with vicious efficiency. The weapons are confiscated. The companies are disbanded. Black officers are arrested on trumped-up charges of insurrection, the same charges white people had used against Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey. The message is clear. Black self-defense is illegal the moment it becomes effective. Captain Jim Williams, the man who proved that organized black resistance could defeat the Klan, is murdered by white supremacists in 1872. His killers are never prosecuted. They never face trial. They walk free, protected by the very legal system that Williams had used to arrest Klansmen just months before. It's a lynching, pure and simple, and it sends a message to every black leader in the South. This is what happens when you win. And then comes the final insult, the one that lasts for over a century. Historians erase the entire story. Textbooks teach that Reconstruction failed because black people were unprepared for freedom, because they were too ignorant to govern themselves. they claim the period descended into chaos and corruption, conveniently ignoring that black militia companies had actually brought order by defeating terrorists. They write about the tragedy of Reconstruction without mentioning that the real tragedy was the federal government abandoning black communities to white supremacist violence. For 100 years, American children learned that the Klan was unstoppable, that black people were helpless victims, that only white Northern charity could provide any protection at all. It's a complete inversion of the truth. Here's what they never told you, the revelation that changes everything. The Ku Klux Klan didn't disappear because white Americans suddenly developed a conscience. The original Klan dissolved in 1871 and 1872 because black militias destroyed them militarily. They were defeated, beaten, crushed by the very people they tried to terrorize. The Klan only came back in 1915 because black communities had been systematically disarmed for 40 years. Think about that timeline. The second Klan, the one that became a national organization with millions of members, only succeeded because white America had spent decades ensuring that what happened in South Carolina in 1871 could never happen again. Every gun control law written in the South after Reconstruction was designed with one purpose: preventing black communities from arming themselves.
Now, one of the things that is important to know too is that the Klan had millions of members. But what broke that up was the internal dissension of white boys pimping, and I am using that word on purpose, white women, and pedophilia. Now you can go back and you can look at the 1920s where they were all over Washington, D.C., up to and through Abraham Lincoln, George Washington's tower, I guess that's what it's called, or the obelisk. And like I always say, evil will always destroy itself in the end, and those who partake in it, always, ALWAYS, and always, ALLWAYS. It never fails. And so, even to this very moment, white folks are confused and upset and out of pocket, and they're talking about black people being the number one users of DEI, affirmative action, and Section 8 and food stamps. You motherfuckers are like a 60+%. So let's continue.
Every restriction on assembly, every ban on black organization, every legal barrier to black self-defense, it all traces back to the terror white supremacists felt when they saw black soldiers win. The entire architecture of Jim Crow violence depended on black defenselessness. Lynchings could only happen in communities that had been stripped of weapons and organization. The Klan could only ride when they knew their victims couldn't shoot back.
They can only ride when they knew that their victim could not shoot back. They could only ride and terrorize when they knew that their victims could not shoot back and defend themselves. There's a great book out called Niggas with Guns, Niggas with Guns, and We Shoot Back. Fuck white boys, they did. Look, like I just said, you can't do wrong and expect for it not to come back to you. Evil will always destroy itself in the end, and those who partake in it. So this idea that white folks having a motherfucking little brain, that we are scared of them, man, fuck you. Fuck all white folks like that. Fuck you. We're not scared of you. Who the fuck are you? We civilized you motherfuckers 3 times. In Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and after Spain in 1492. So what the fuck are you talking about? But don't trip, don't get all bent out of shape. We're gonna get you. All we're doing when you hear black folks say, "I bet," then we just holding the line, towing the line. That's it. But when it's our turn, and how the phrase go, when the story shift, however it go, I'm trying to think of it. When conditions change, the story shift, or whatever the case may be, you can't stay on top and you fucking around. So you're gonna find out. And now white folks are finding out throughout all of America and around the world. Y'all broke than a motherfucker. All of you is broke, America broke, Canada broke, the global south is rising. The leader of the global south, BRICS, is Africa. And you have no goal to deal with the change. You have nothing. So the first shot is economic. Then once we get a hold of and control of Europe, that's it. And then America falls. That's it. So white boy, you're done. The house of Judah is rising. You can't stop it. You guys went to sleep for about 100 years, like the hare and the turtle story. Y'all took off, had power, had money, had fame, had glory. The white man is, the white man up, wah. You went to sleep for about 100 years, and black folk passed you up, never made a sound, and now we're at the finish line. We won. Like we always do with you broke motherfuckers. Mentally broke, spiritually broke, mentally broke, spiritually broke, psychologically broke motherfuckers. Y'all ain't shit. And I'm just being out. So let's finish it up and we're going to get on.
The story of Captain Jim Williams and the black militia companies isn't just forgotten history. It's not just a detail that slipped through the cracks of historical memory. It's suppressed history, actively erased, because it proves something that white supremacy cannot tolerate. When black communities have resources, organization, and the means to defend themselves, they don't just survive racist violence, they defeat it. They don't need white saviors or charity or gradual progress granted from above. They need white society to stop actively blocking their power. Jim Williams showed us that armed resistance works. He proved that black self-defense isn't terrorism or chaos or revenge, it's justice. He demonstrated that with organization, discipline, and legal authority, black Americans could protect their communities, arrest their oppressors, and build a different kind of South. And white America couldn't let that story survive, because it would give every future generation of black people a blueprint for resistance. So the next time someone tells you that Reconstruction failed, or that the Klan was invincible, or that black Americans were passive victims waiting for white people to save them, remember October 1871. Remember 600 black soldiers marching through the darkness. Remember Captain Jim Williams kicking down doors and arresting terrorists. Remember the 90% drop in Klan violence wherever black militias operated. Remember that for one brief moment, black military organization crushed white supremacist terrorism so thoroughly that it took a century of deliberate forgetting to hide the truth. Their names were erased from the history books. Their achievements were buried under lies about black incapacity and white benevolence. But their victory was real. The Klan ran. The terrorists fled. The oppressors were arrested and convicted. It happened. It worked. And that's the history they never wanted you to know. Because knowing it means understanding that black freedom has always been won through black resistance, not white permission. That's the lesson. That's the truth. And that's why they tried so hard to make you forget.
My Lord. You see where I'm going with this each and every time that I'm on the show? I'm trying to tell you that white folks ain't shit. They learn how to fight from us. the military school, what is it, in Virginia, West Point, they get all, not a little bit, not 2%, not 10%, all of their mastery of war from who? A black guy, Hannibal of Carthage. They don't know how, and even if they got all the latest shit, they don't know how to fucking fight. They lost against Haiti. Haiti had a rough, how do you want to put that? Haiti had a rough back, tough back, I don't know, ragtag army. But they were disciplined, they resisted, and they kicked ass and take names. France had all the latest gear and pistols and rifles and military. They got their ass. Do I need to say more? White people cannot beat black people at nothing. They talk shit because they know they ain't shit. They ain't shit because they know they talk shit, and that's it. Hold on. And so when you look at white folk, don't look at them with, oh, it's a scam. They're con artists. They're pulling levers and all this bullshit. Behind the curtain, they're playing the Wizard of Oz game. But if you pull back the curtain, you will begin to see these motherfuckers ain't shit. They're like flies landing on shit. We're like bees producing, being productive, creating honey and pollinating other species of plants. And so when a bee try to talk to a fucking fly, hey fly, you guys need to stop landing on shit and eating it. That's white folk landing on shit and eating it. You need to try honey. The fly is gonna look at the bee like, honey? Nah, we like the smell of shit. This is what they do. White folk cannot pour piss out of a boot, even if the direction said turn up. They just that goddamn dumb. And if you don't believe me, look at what the fucking debt is, $38 trillion. How the fuck do you take over some shit that we black people started and you run them motherfucker into the ground in less than 100 years, a little bit over 100 years. Ran that motherfucker and they ran that shit into the ground in Europe. Now you're talking like $4 or $5 trillion for every country and about $30 trillion for all of Europe, including Italy, including England. They're a bunch of fuck up. That's it. And when I say fuck up, they're the main ones who are into pedophilia. And the main country that is a safe haven for white boy pedophilia and murder is Israel. I'll be right back.
Excuse me, what are you doing? No, I just saw you put that underneath her dress. Absolutely you did.
No, ma'am, I really wasn't.
You absolutely did.
Ma'am, I really wasn't.
Then show me your phone.
Yes.
No, we're going to call security.
No, I really...
You absolutely did. And you were following me over in the children's section.
Because I have a sister who's pregnant. Ma'am, I really wasn't.
You've been extremely close to me this whole time. Please show me your phone. No.
I really don't...
Let's get security. Because this is absolutely wrong.
I really don't mean to.
No, you obviously did.
No, ma'am, please, I really...
No, let's get security.
So since it's cool for all these Caucasians to hop online and talk about black fatigue, I decided to speak on some white fatigue. Now the clip I showed in the intro was one of my main reasons for having white fatigue. Did you know white males make up 31% of the population in America, but are 71% of the people that have child, you know what? Yes, I did a whole video on it. So, I mean, it might just be in their DNA. But also, let me just show you some more evidence.
Let me go in there. Let me make sure nobody in here. Hello? See? I'm going back. There goes. know this is the women's bathroom, right? Sorry, that's the women's bathroom. A man in the women's bathroom. Why you gotta go in here with your kids? Let me make sure nobody else ain't in here. Let me make sure. So you gotta go in there with your kids. Make sure no man in the damn bathroom.
Now, another one of my concerns is that a lot of them are just very violent. And I don't want to base them off of their ancestors, but I mean, Caucasians, every place they went to, they slaughtered the people and conquered the land and then acted like it was theirs. Oh my goodness, who said that? But the past is in the past. Let me show you something in the present.
2.5 years that I did start yes, go up fucking ass. You're not doing your fucking job, motherfucker. I had this shit for 20 years. You cannot de-escalate like shit. Because you're stuck in your fucking job. De-escalate, you pussies. De-escalate. Well, we're amplifying everything. Shut the fuck up, baldy cunt. You're talking to someone who has the PTSD on foreign combat tours that were special operations science degree degrees who doubled their fucking record on fucking M11 caches. And you're
Just shoot this motherfucker. He talking too much.
He's like, I'm call out of the ditch. Get the there's a tow truck and me. You have nothing to do with this. It's not a law enforcement issue.
I hate to be that guy, but if this was a black person, we all know what would have happened to him. He's on 10. He is definitely a threat to all the officers, but somehow he was not taken down. I'm not going to go too much in depth, but another reason I have white fatigue, they just be junkies.
Lock her ass the fuck up. Now look at it, worthless motherfucker. Drugged out, meth head, crackhead, all kind of shit.
We got people stealing out of stores, being on mail, walking the streets high, man. What is going on with the white community? I'm not gonna lie, man. I just
say no, motherfucker.
Everybody watching this video, I don't have white fatigue. I just wanted to show y'all how easy it is to find a degenerate clip of any race and simply spread hate. A lot of these people with black fatigue just see the first viral video of a black degenerate doing something stupid and run with it. And I can literally do this for days, just finding clips on clips on clips of any race being degenerate, but that does not define the entire race. And we can literally do this with any race. Nobody is perfect. And if I'm being honest, man, in real life, I have great encounters with white people, bro. I have white friends. So if any of my Caucasian friends see this, I don't mean no harm. I was trolling, gang. Black people and white people get along just fine in America, man. And I'm going to show you all some clips. What you're looking at is a UPS driver outside of a home in a suburb outside of Philadelphia. And as you can see, the back of his pants are soaking wet, and he does not have any shoes on. Now, if you're like me, you're probably thinking, what in the world is going on? How did he end up like this? And when he pulled up to the home, there was a group of teenagers celebrating a graduation. And what happened next was very unexpected. The kids had created a gigantic slip and slide, and they invited the UPS driver to join them on this slip and slide. And that's how I ended up like this. And this is dope to me, man. I just love seeing people show love to each other. Just having a good time, vibing. They don't know each other. But, man, just great energy all around. And if you look at the media, you would think that we just all hate each other. And we don't. And stuff like this just proves it. And I just love this. Shout out to this family. Shout out to this UPS driver for just having such a good vibe and good spirit. And he's just going about his day. That was the best part of his day, I guarantee. And that's the best part of these teenagers' day as well. I had to throw in.
Yeah, his black guy got fired because that's not part of his goddamn job. Your job is to deliver packages and not to be going along, sliding along on a slip and slide.
Some positivity, man, but don't get it wrong. Racism still runs deep in America. I hope y'all not too mad, man. I know the comments might go crazy if this video gets out there, so don't attack me and call me no slurs, man. But instead, I really want y'all to watch the video that Black Americans commit the most crimes. I think.
So that is what it is. So I can say this: white supremacy is an overreaction to black oppression. And with this clip of going along and slip and slide and shaking hands with white folk is level one. They'll let you do some shit here, there, everywhere, and make it look like, it's cool and not all white folks. Man, you better wake the fuck up. But at the higher level of white supremacy, they'll call you a fucking nigga to your face, stab you in your goddamn back and front, and slit your throat, and hang your ass from a tree talking about you committed suicide. This is the gentler part or side of white supremacy in order to sedate the situation and make it look like, well, not all white folks are prejudiced. They are part of the scheme. Now, don't take it out on me. I'm going along with what a lot of our people have said. Muhammad Ali said, put all these motherfuckers in one basket. We can't afford to allow these motherfuckers to even look like they're on our side. And they're not. They're not. They simply are not going to give up and disenfranchise themselves from power. We need to take the motherfucker. And we are taking it economically because they're weak. That is our entry point. And once we get that, we change the law to benefit us, to disadvantage them, and dispossess them of every motherfucking thing they got. I'll be right back.
Called it the American dream. Work hard, rise up, and you can own a piece of the world. But for thousands of black Americans who did exactly that, the dream turned into a nightmare. They built banks, businesses, entire towns. They became millionaires in a world that said they shouldn't even be free. And then, almost overnight, their names, their homes, and their fortunes disappeared. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's a chapter of history buried on purpose. A story of brilliance, betrayal, and resilience. The story of how black wealth was built, destroyed, and hidden from the world. In the ashes of the Civil War, America stood at a crossroads. Freedom had been won, but equality had not. 4 million people, once enslaved, now found themselves free, but penniless, landless, and facing a society determined to keep them in chains by another name. And yet, out of the oppression, something extraordinary began to grow. Across the South and Midwest, formerly enslaved men and women refused to bow to the weight of history. They became entrepreneurs, educators, and innovators. They built their own schools when white institutions barred them. They started banks when no one would lend them $1. They founded insurance companies, railroads, and newspapers. From the streets of Durham, North Carolina, to Jackson Ward in Virginia, to the heart of Tulsa, Oklahoma, entire black communities began to rise, self-sufficient, confident, and prosperous. They were living proof that black Americans could succeed not in spite of the system, but beyond it. In Tulsa, one community would become a legend. Greenwood, known as Black Wall Street. It was the early 1900s, and the oil boom had turned Oklahoma into a new frontier of opportunity. In Greenwood, black entrepreneurs seized that chance. They built luxury hotels, movie theaters, grocery stores, law firms, and hospitals, all owned and operated by black citizens. The dollar circulated dozens of times before it left the community. Doctors lived beside teachers, lawyers beside shop owners. There were over 600 businesses in a 35-block radius. And it wasn't just Tulsa. There were more than 60 black towns across America thriving during the same period, each a monument to resilience and ambition. In an age when white politicians preached segregation, these communities quietly declared independence. But prosperity made them visible, and visibility in a racist nation was dangerous. By 1910, the South was a powder keg. Jim Crow laws legalized segregation. Lynchings terrorized entire towns. Yet black wealth kept rising, and that terrified those who depended on inequality to maintain power. White newspapers began publishing articles warning of Negro arrogance. Politicians claimed that black progress would lead to chaos. In truth, the chaos they feared was equality. When white men saw black millionaires driving cars, wearing fine suits, and owning property downtown, when they saw a world where a black man could hire a white worker, the illusion of white superiority began to crack. And for those built on hate, that crack was unbearable. The hostility grew quietly at first. Boycotts, threats, laws designed to choke off growth. Banks denied loans. Insurance companies refused coverage, but the success continued. Then, in 1898, in Wilmington, North Carolina, the backlash turned violent. Wilmington was a rare southern city where black citizens held political power. They ran businesses, owned newspapers, and even held public office. It was a thriving, multiracial democracy, until white supremacists decided to take it back by force. A mob of 2,000 armed men overthrew the elected government, burned the city's black newspaper, and murdered dozens of black residents. The rest fled for their lives. It was the only successful coup d'etat in American history, and it worked. The story was erased from textbooks for over a century.
Now, all of that land, and this was an illegitimate coup d'etat of an American government. Treason. And all of that land need to be given back, as well as the state of Alaska, as well as the state of Hawaii, were black control. The state of Hawaii was and still is a black kingdom with its own king and queen. Let's continue.
But the message was clear. Black success would be met with white rage, and no place would feel that more than Greenwood, Tulsa. It began, as so many tragedies do, with a lie. In May 1921, a young black man named Dick Rowland, a shoe shiner, entered an elevator in downtown Tulsa. A white girl screamed. Rumors spread that Rowland had assaulted her. He hadn't, but truth rarely mattered when lies were more convenient. By evening, white mobs gathered outside the courthouse, demanding that Rowland be lynched. Black war veterans from Greenwood, many of them World War I heroes, arrived to protect him. They had fought for democracy abroad, and now they were fighting for justice at home. Then came the gunfire. Overnight, the city turned into a war zone. White mobs, aided by police and even the National Guard, stormed Greenwood. Machine guns were mounted on trucks. Planes dropped incendiary bombs on homes and businesses. Entire city blocks were engulfed in flames. Black families fled as their houses burned behind them. Some were shot in the streets. Others were captured and forced into detention camps.
Now, I did a video of this a while back, and when I tell you they had mansions, beautiful homes, all destroyed because of jealousy. Because white boys and girls know they can't compete with us. They know that. But don't trip. Justice will always win in the end. And hell has no fury like a woman scorned, like a man scorned, like a people scorned. We as black people have not forgotten this fucking bullshit that you white motherfuckers have done to our ancestors. We are going to get vengeance. You better believe that. Political vengeance, economic vengeance, spiritual vengeance, when it is necessary, physical vengeance. Y'all are tripping. You actually believe, you have no accountability. You have no soul. How the fuck are you gonna care about raping little boys and girls and getting off with probation? Silly ass motherfuckers that you guys are. Silly, stupid, insane psychopath. They continue.
By dawn, more than 1,200 homes were destroyed. Hospitals, libraries, churches, all reduced to ashes. The Red Cross called it one of the worst domestic disasters in U.S. history. But what happened after the fire was even more chilling. Insurance companies refused to pay claims. Banks claimed loan defaults. City officials rezoned the land to prevent rebuilding. Property deeds vanished. Court records disappeared. What had been one of the richest black communities in America was erased, economically, physically, and historically. For decades, silence settled over Tulsa like smoke that never cleared. Survivors were told not to speak. Newspapers omitted the event. Schools never mentioned it. And yet, buried beneath the ashes, pieces of truth remain. In the 1990s, researchers began uncovering what really happened. They found insurance records, family photographs, and eyewitness accounts that told a story far bigger than a riot. It wasn't a riot at all. It was a massacre, a coordinated effort to destroy black wealth at its peak. Families who had once been millionaires, owning real estate, stocks, and oil rights, were left destitute. And
Now you say oil rights. They had oil. The richest girl up until about 1930 was a black girl, and in the Middle East, long before Rockefeller, black people were making connection with the Arabs over there and started to really make impact on the oil market. Can you believe that? That's not no. You would think that, Shell and Amoco and Rockefeller and all of that, they had the lead in. No, they did not. We had the lead in. The black people did. But they interrupted that as well. Let's continue.
Tulsa was not alone. In Rosewood, Florida, a similar massacre occurred in 1923 after another false accusation. The entire town was burned to the ground. Survivors fled into swamps. Their land, thousands of acres, was seized and resold. In Ocoee, Florida, Election Day violence drove out every black resident. The land they left behind would later become worth billions in real estate value. And in Forsyth County, Georgia, white mobs expelled more than 1,000 black residents, claiming their farms and homes. These were not isolated events. They were patterns of theft disguised as justice. After the violence, the rewriting began. History books labeled the massacres as riots. Officials destroyed police records and court files. Newspapers altered headlines. Black survivors who tried to rebuild were met with endless bureaucracy and open threats. Many never returned. When their descendants later tried to reclaim the lost land, they discovered deeds missing, archives accidentally destroyed, and government agencies unwilling to help. Economists have estimated that the destruction of Tulsa's Black Wall Street alone robbed black Americans of over $200 million in today's money. If you include all the black towns burned and properties seized across the South, the loss climbs into the billions. And that gap didn't just vanish, it compounded. Generations later, those stolen millions became the foundation of white wealth in America. New neighborhoods, banks, and corporations built on land taken from massacred families. The victims' descendants inherited nothing but silence. But history has a way of refusing to die. In the early 21st century, as descendants began tracing their ancestry, new evidence emerged. Archaeologists unearthed unmarked graves. Investigative journalists found property deeds showing black ownership of prime downtown land. Court petitions were filed, demanding reparations, not as charity, but as repayment for theft. And slowly, the world began to listen. In 2021, the last known survivors of the Tulsa Massacre, aged over 100, testified before Congress. Their voices trembled, but their message was clear. We built this, they destroyed it. And for a century, America tried to pretend it never happened. Their testimony reignited a national reckoning. Documentaries, books, and memorials began uncovering the full scale of what was lost. But perhaps the most powerful discovery wasn't just the land or the money. It was the truth. For the first time, America was forced to see that black poverty didn't happen by chance. It was engineered. And black wealth wasn't rare. It was systematically erased. Imagine for a moment if Greenwood had survived. If those 600 businesses had grown through the 20th century. If their wealth had been passed down, invested, expanded. Economists say that by now, black Americans could have owned trillions more in generational wealth. The racial wealth gap, the same one often blamed on laziness or lack of education, would barely exist. Instead, that gap is one of the deepest in the modern world, not because black communities failed, but because their success was deliberately destroyed. And yet, even in the face of centuries of erasure, the spirit of Greenwood lives on. From Atlanta to Detroit, from Chicago to Houston, new generations of black entrepreneurs are rebuilding. They are creating tech companies, investment firms, and global brands, reviving the same ambition that once defined Black Wall Street. Because the greatest revenge against erasure is legacy. The destruction of black wealth wasn't limited to America. Across Africa and the Caribbean, similar tactics were used. European empires extracted resources, erased local economies, and replaced thriving civilizations with debt and dependency. In the Congo, Belgium's King Leopold II amassed a fortune from rubber and ivory, while killing millions. In Nigeria, the British dismantled flourishing Yoruba and Igbo trade systems to monopolize palm oil and tin exports. In Haiti, after gaining independence, France forced the nation to pay reparations to former slave owners, over $21 billion in today's money. That debt crippled Haiti for generations, turning the world's first black republic into one of the poorest nations on earth. The story was the same everywhere. Whenever black people created wealth, the system found a way to destroy it, or take it. But the revelation today is this: those stories can no longer be buried. Historians are digitizing archives once thought lost. Descendants are suing for restitution. Technology is restoring names and faces erased from history. And through this rediscovery, a new truth is emerging. That black excellence was never the exception. It was the foundation. Long before the world acknowledged them, there were black millionaires, black inventors, black empires. From Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived, to Madam C.J. Walker, America's first self-made female millionaire. Black wealth is not a new story. The tragedy is that each generation was forced to start over, again and again, because their prosperity was stolen, buried, and renamed. So what do we do with this truth? We remember, we rebuild, we teach, because the greatest weapon of oppression was never violence. It was erasure. If people forget what was stolen, they stop asking to get it back. But once the truth is known, silence loses its power. The story of how black millionaires' wealth was destroyed and hidden isn't just a tragedy. It's a warning, a reminder that progress without protection can be undone overnight. Yet it's also a story of defiance, because every time the world burned their houses, they rebuilt. Every time they were silenced, they wrote again. Every time they were erased, they returned through the voices of their descendants. That is the power of memory. That is the legacy of those who refused to vanish. History is not just written by the victors, it's also buried by them. But the truth has a way of rising. Greenwood may have burned, rosewood may have fallen, but their ashes became seeds. And those seeds are growing again through every black business owner, every historian digging through forgotten archives, every storyteller refusing to let history stay hidden. Because in the end, wealth isn't just money. It's memory, culture, and courage. And as long as we remember the truth, they can never take that away again. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it, talk about it, keep these names alive. Because history doesn't belong to those who hide it. It belongs to those who uncover it. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth they tried to erase.
All right. So we're getting into the last one. Let me see how long it's been so far. It's been an hour and a half. Wow. Okay. So this is all leads into the ashes of what the previous video we're talking about. No lie can live forever, and the truth sets you free. And when you are truly free mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and you're making that connection to the black universe, because we are a representation of the black universe filtered down in human form. Our ancestors were able to connect to the universe because we understood that what is up is down, what is down is up, what is in is out, what is out is in. And that having a constant positive view of who you are, what you are, where you are, why you are, and where you come from allows one to really flourish. And understanding the power of prayer, not the modern day way of praying. That shit is no good. What I'm talking about is Ma'at and the understanding of Ma'at, harmony. You must be in line with the universe's force of good. Now, does that mean that you are good 100% of the time? No. But 99.9% of the time, and no less than 90% of the time, you're going to be focused. You're going to be really into what you are doing. You don't care about all of the extraneous, something like that. Forces that's trying to tell you can't do it, you never make it, No. Take accounting of your words and of your speech and of your actions. Because what you think dictate what you say, would dictate what you do. And when all those three things are in line or aligned positively, and they're vibrating and they're giving off this strong, I don't give a fuck what's going on, I'm going to succeed, then everything else will come around and form around that small seed and create the world that you want to live in. And this is why I'm talking about Maxwell Chikumbutsu. This guy created a machine that doesn't use power of any kind. And now he has another machine where it creates energy out of nothing. But if you look at it, you say, oh, that's not possible. But if you look at it, God is nothing and God is everything. The Alpha and the Omega, the up and the down, the in and the out. He has a beautiful way of connecting into the universe. The God within is also the God without. The God inside of you is the same as the God outside of you. The same thing. So we'll be right back. This is 13 minutes.
Of science. Maxwell Chikumbutsu has just done it again. And this time, what he's revealed feels like something torn straight out of the future. After years of speculation, silence, and subtle hints, the Zimbabwean inventor has officially announced his next creation, a self-powered invention so advanced that experts are struggling to even describe how it works. It's not a car, not a bus, not a drone, and not a generator. This time, Maxwell has gone beyond anything the human mind could easily imagine. He calls it the core, a compact, self-powered quantum device capable of creating, storing, and transmitting limitless clean energy through the air to anything, anywhere, at any time. Yes, you heard that right. A single device capable of wirelessly powering entire homes, vehicles, cities, and even spacecraft without any cables, fuels, or external sources. The announcement sent shockwaves through the global scientific community. For decades, researchers have dreamed of creating a fully self-sustaining energy core, a technology that doesn't just produce power, but reshapes how energy itself exists in our daily lives. And now, it appears Maxwell has done it. He unveiled the prototype at a private event in Harare, surrounded by his research team and a handful of international observers. Those present described it as a metallic sphere the size of a basketball, glowing with faint blue hue, suspended inside a transparent casing, without any visible connection to a power source. The moment he switched it on, the lights in the entire facility turned off, and yet everything remained powered. Devices, monitors, and even the building's air conditioning system kept running. The audience watched in stunned silence as Maxwell simply smiled and said, "This is not electricity as you know it. This is creation energy." The room erupted in disbelief. Could this really be the next leap beyond self-powered cars and homes? According to Maxwell, the core operates using a unique principle that blends magnetic resonance, gravitational balancing, and quantum tunneling, forming a feedback loop that sustains itself indefinitely. It's not just perpetual motion, it's perpetual creation. The core, he explained, doesn't drain from existing energy, but taps into the quantum vacuum, the infinite sea of energy that exists in every point of space. By stabilizing the interaction between matter and vacuum energy, the core generates usable electricity without combustion, solar input, or mechanical motion. Imagine a world where your phone never needs charging, where your home, car, or city runs forever without bills, pollution, or dependence. That's the kind of world Maxwell envisions. But this invention isn't just about convenience. It's about survival. Global energy demands are skyrocketing. Fossil fuels are dwindling and renewables, while promising, can't yet sustain global scale without storage challenges. Maxwell's core, if proven and mass-produced, could single-handedly dismantle the world's energy infrastructure. Governments, corporations, and investors are all reportedly scrambling to understand how such a device could exist and how to control it. According to those close to Maxwell, he's already received offers worth billions for exclusive licensing rights, but he's turned them all down. He reportedly said, "This isn't for sale. This is for humanity." It's a statement that echoes his past, where many of his self-powered inventions, from electric cars to home generators, were met with skepticism and suppression. And yet, each time his work has survived, evolved, and resurfaced stronger. This time, though, the stakes are higher than ever. Because if Maxwell's core truly works as he claims, it will mean the end of the grid, the end of energy monopolies, the end of power as commodity. Think about that for a second. Every light.
This powerful heater can heat up any room in seconds without the high electricity costs. This space heater is being...
Every city, every vehicle, powered indefinitely without cost or control. That's more than technology. That's freedom. In a world built on energy dependency, that kind of invention is revolutionary and dangerous. Insiders suggest that after the announcement, several unnamed entities attempted to contact Maxwell within hours, some even offering full relocation and lab funding abroad. But Maxwell refused. He reportedly told his team that the core must be built in Africa because Africa has paid the highest price for power it never owned. That single line sent chills through everyone in attendance. It wasn't just about technology anymore. It was about justice, about rewriting a system that has long profited from scarcity, dependency. Maxwell's prototype, according to witnesses, was tested across multiple scenarios during the demonstration. It powered an electric bus for over 36 hours straight without charging. It charged 10 smartphones simultaneously from a distance of 50 meters. It even powered an entire medical lab without being physically connected to anything. The core simply sat there, humming quietly, glowing faintly, emitting no heat, smoke, or noise. Observers claimed it even adjusted its energy output automatically depending on what devices were nearby. That means it's not just a generator. It's an intelligent, adaptive power source that senses demand and responds accordingly. A living form of energy. Scientists from Europe and Asia who were present describe it as a cross between a Tesla coil, a fusion reactor, and something not yet discovered. Even more astonishing, Maxwell revealed that the device's internal temperature remained constant regardless of output load, meaning no overheating, no degradation, and no mechanical wear. It simply endures. When asked how it was built, Maxwell explained that it uses a series of layered nanomaterials capable of capturing and recycling quantum fluctuations. He claimed that by aligning magnetic domains in a precise pattern, he was able to stabilize the chaotic quantum fields that normally cause energy loss. In simpler terms, it turns randomness into usable power. The crowd was stunned. Reporters who attended described the atmosphere as surreal, a blend of awe and disbelief. Some said it felt like witnessing the moment humanity discovered fire again. But of course, not everyone believes it. Mainstream scientists are calling for independent verification. Some are labeling it an illusion, a hoax, or a misinterpreted electromagnetic experiment. Yet, Maxwell remains calm. He's invited multiple institutions, including universities and private engineers, to replicate his setup independently. He's even open-sourced a portion of the design's basic layout, releasing non-critical schematics online for the public to study. Within hours, forums across the world exploded with discussions, theories, and experiments. Tech enthusiasts began building small replicas, claiming they were seeing strange energy outputs even without external input. Something is definitely happening. Whether it's misunderstood science or a genuine breakthrough, it's undeniable that Maxwell has ignited a new global conversation. What if energy doesn't have to be generated, but simply accessed? What if the universe itself is the battery? That's the question now being asked everywhere from labs to boardrooms. The core challenges everything we know about thermodynamics, conservation laws, and human innovation. It suggests that what we once thought impossible, endless clean energy, might have been possible all along, and that humanity just needed someone bold enough to reach into the unknown and pull it out. Maxwell's previous inventions, self-powered cars, drones, and homes, were only precursors, steps leading to this. Each device, he now says, was a learning phase, a test of the principles that culminated in the core. When asked how long he's been working on it, he said quietly, since before the world was ready. That single sentence says it all, because readiness is what this invention challenges most. Are we ready for a world without energy bills? A world where every individual is power independent? A world where nations can no longer weaponize electricity or oil? For many, that world sounds like paradise. For others, it's chaos, because power in all forms has always meant control. And when you remove control, you change everything. That's why Maxwell's announcement feels less like a product launch and more like a revolution, a silent, scientific uprising against centuries of limitation. One engineer at the event reportedly said, "If this is real, then this is not just a next step. It's the last step of human dependence." The implications are staggering. Imagine disaster zones where portable cores can restore power instantly. Imagine villages in Africa lighting up overnight without ever connecting to a grid. Imagine spacecraft traveling across the solar system without fuel. Imagine a phone that never turns off, or a car that drives forever. That's what this tiny metallic sphere promises. And yet, Maxwell warns that the technology must be used wisely. He stated clearly that energy without purpose becomes chaos. To him, the core isn't meant for luxury. It's meant for liberation. He envisions empowering remote schools, hospitals, and transportation systems in places long abandoned by modern infrastructure. He believes it could transform Africa from a consumer of global technology to its creator. That's why, instead of taking it to foreign investors, he's partnering with local universities and youth engineers. He's even creating what he calls energy freedom hubs, small community workshops where people can learn, experiment, and eventually build their own self-powered devices. He says, if every person can understand how power works, they will never be controlled again. It's a philosophy as much as it is a technology. And that's what makes it revolutionary. Because true change doesn't start with invention. It starts with empowerment. But how close is the core to public release? Maxwell says the prototype is stable and ready for scaling, but safety testing is still ongoing. He wants to ensure the energy field produced by the core is biologically safe for long-term exposure. Early results are promising, showing no harmful radiation or thermal emissions. Still, he insists on caution. He understands the weight of what he's holding, because this is not just an invention. It's the power of creation itself, bottled inside a human-made shell. And if history has taught us anything, it's that every great discovery comes with responsibility. When nuclear power was first discovered, it promised free energy. Then came the bomb. When digital networks were born, they promised freedom and brought surveillance. So, what will infinite power bring? That's the question Maxwell himself leaves unanswered. He says the technology is neutral. It's humanity that must decide what to do with it. As the announcement spreads, scientists, engineers, and governments are already reacting. Some nations are calling for global regulation before such devices can be used. Others are demanding that all information about the core be made public for safety evaluation. But Maxwell's stance remains firm. He believes knowledge belongs to everyone, not a select few. He's planning an open global broadcast soon, where he'll power an entire off-grid facility live using the core alone. It will be humanity's first real-time demonstration of self-sustaining, wireless, quantum-based power. If successful, it could mark the beginning of a new era, one where energy is no longer a privilege, but a birthright. And maybe, just maybe, this will finally prove what Maxwell's been saying for years, that power doesn't come from the ground or the sky, but from understanding the universe itself. He believes that everything vibrates with energy, and that by learning in harmony, we can create balance, not chaos. That's why he calls the core a heart of the planet, because once it starts beating, it never stops. For those who have followed Maxwell's journey from the beginning, this moment feels inevitable. The man who gave us self-powered cars, wireless charging networks, and off-grid communities has now unveiled something beyond imagination, something that could redefine civilization. But the story doesn't end here. Because even as the world debates, tests, and doubts, one truth remains. Innovation can never be contained, whether the world accepts it or not. Maxwell's core represents the unstoppable momentum of human progress. It's the spark of a new dawn, and perhaps the final key to unlocking a future where energy, freedom, and humanity become one. So as the lights of the world flicker under the weight of old systems, somewhere in a quiet lab in Africa, a small blue sphere hums softly, rewriting history in silence. And soon, that silence will turn into a sound the world will never forget. The sound of limitless power awakening. Because once the core lights up the world, there's no going back.
All right. So let's get on and try to end this with a closing comment. It's really simple. Fuck all white folk. Stay focused. Hey, Brother Willie, Rivers, I really appreciate you being here. You know that. I really appreciate that. And fuck all white folks, man. Don't pay these rat tail growing motherfuckers no attention. They ain't shit. Why waste your time? Do what you need to do to get it done. Unity, unity, unity. And a gun. We can't be attacked if we got guns. It's your right, the Second Amendment right to have a gun. So fuck all what white folks are talking about. I don't give no fucks about their feelings or emotions. They ain't got none. They're demons in human skin. And they don't give a fuck about nobody, not even themselves. You know what I mean? So, but with that, I'll see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and like always, for the next 24/7, 365. Stay blessed.